Keeper of the Lost Cities, Neverseen, Chapter 48. If you're not already subscribed, why not? That would really help me out, and I would very much appreciate it. Thanks. Sophie hadn't known what to expect when she and Fitz arrived in the Crooked Forest, but she'd assumed lecturing and freaking out would play a major role. Instead, her friends greeted them with a tackle hug to end all tackle hugs, and when they finally let them breathe and were done pestering them for every detail about their time in Foxfire, she noticed Calla watching from her perch on one of the curved trunks. "We're safe," Sophie promised. "Elwyn quarantined us before we left." "I can tell," Calla said. "I just don't know how to thank you. The risk you both took." She looked away, trailing her green thumbs along the straightened edge where the tree had morphed into a survivor. "I wish I could have done more," Sophie said, swallowing back the knot of all her frustrations. "How bad was it at Auxilium after we left?" she asked her friends. "Well, let's see," Keith said. "The purple coach fainted when you guys teleported, and I'm pretty sure the other two peed their pants. Then everyone started screaming and freaking out about the plague, and it took a couple of hours for the coaches to calm them down. That's when a group of waywards started demanding to know if you guys were going to be ejected or expelled or whatever they call it. Are we?" Fitz interrupted. Dex, Keith, and Biana shared a look. "They wouldn't give me any extra beads when I asked for them," Dex said, which turned into another whole school shouting match. But the coaches said their decision was final. "So that's that," Sophie mumbled. "Not necessarily," Biana said. "Before we left, the Shade came up to me and did his freaky whisper in my head thing." She shuddered. "And he said to tell you, if you really want to prove the coaches wrong, you should return with your friends and make a stand. So, I'm guessing he wants you to leap with us in the morning. But I don't know if it's a good idea." "Me either," Dex said. "Who knows what the coaches will do?" "I don't think the Shade would have suggested it if he thought we'd be punished," Sophie said. "He told me when they punish someone, they punish everyone." "Maybe he thinks we're all going to be punished anyway, so he wants you to suffer with us," Dix said. Sophie shook her head. "That doesn't sound like him." "But you barely know him," Fitz reminded her. "Yeah, and isn't this the guy I heard the boober dude warning you about?" Keith asked. "It is," Sophie agreed. "But I think the real reason the coaches don't like him is because he disagrees with their rules and finds ways around them. Sound familiar?" "Right," Keith said, "but I'm not a Shade." "You're seriously going to judge him because of his ability?" Sophie asked. "We do it with pyrokinetics," Dex jumped in. "And I don't know if that's right either," Sophie admitted. "Think of how much the ban on pyrokinesis has made them what they are. That's why Finton rebelled and why Brant joined the Neverseen. If being talentless hadn't made him a bad match for Jolie, their story might have been a completely different ending." "Maybe," Keith agreed, "but Shades will always be shady. It's in the name, and they control shadow vapor and call it the darkness within us." "Does that mean they can control us like mesmers?" Sophie asked. "It's more about being able to read people," Fitz said. "It's kind of like what Counselor Tarek does when he describes somebody, only Shades are looking at your potential for darkness." "Tell me that's not creepy," Keith said. I can inflict pain on people," Sophie reminded him. "Besides, how is judging him for his ability any better than judging people for being talentless?" "So, you're saying you want to trust him?" Fitz asked. "I don't know. Maybe we should see what the collective thinks. They may not want any of us going to Auxilium anymore, so we can focus on what's going on with the plague." She was honestly hoping for the latter, so they could go back to the Bosque Gorge and figure out why the plague seemed to be spreading faster there, and make sure no other gnomes were stranded in the area. But when they returned to Aluvater, Mr. Forkle was waiting for them in the bridge's gazebo, and he brought Sophie and Fitz new Auxilium uniforms. "I take it this means we'll be going to school tomorrow," Fitz said. "You did the right thing, helping that gnome," Mr. Forkle told them. "The coaches should see that." "And if they don't?" Dex asked. "Then it's your job to convince them. We need to get them on our side. They know more about what's happening in the neutral territories than anyone." "But they don't seem to care," Sophie mumbled. "Then make them care. That's one of your greatest strengths, Miss Foster. One we had nothing to do with. You're a natural force for change, and here's a chance to make a true difference." Her friends looked as nervous as Sophie felt, but they didn't argue as they headed for their rooms. "Actually," Mr. Forkle transmitted to Sophie, "if you could stay behind, there's something I need to discuss with you. Privately." Sophie figured it had something to do with the sick gnome or her visiting foxfire, so she definitely wasn't prepared when he told her, "I have news for Mr. Sensen." "Is it about his mom?" she asked, sinking into one of the chairs. She had a feeling this was the kind of conversation she wanted to be sitting down for. "It is, but not in the manner you're thinking. The news is about her past, not her present, and that's why I'm sharing it with you. You seem to have a better sense of how Mr. Sensen is handling things, so I trust you to decide how we proceed from here. As you know, Councillor Orley has been working with Lord Cassius, searching for clues on his wife's Neverseen activities, and word has reached me that a few days ago we discovered a trunk hidden in Candleshade. I am sure you can imagine how easy it would be for a family to overlook it all these years." Sophie nodded. Keith's house had to be at least 200 stories, but Sophie didn't care about that. What was in the trunk? Lots of maps. The council's still working to determine their purpose, and a kit for making temporary leaping crystals, like the ones you used at Exilium. We're assuming that's one of the ways she slipped away to the Neverseen's hideouts without anyone noticing. And, Sophie pressed, since none of it merited a private conversation, and there was also a note. Lord Cassius wanted it returned to his son, so it found its way to me. He reached into his cape pocket and handed her a plain piece of paper that seemed far too large for the tiny message scrawled at the top in loopy writing. "Dear Keith, I'm doing this for you. Love, Mom." "So, what are we going to do?" Mr. Forkle asked. "Tell Mr. Sensen, or spare him?" Sophie stared at the page, trying to decide what bothered her more, the word love or all the blank space. And she kept picturing the Keith she'd seen in the physician's tent, the angry, scared Keith lurking just under the surface. But she'd promised Keith she wouldn't hide things from him, and this was a very, very big thing. "It's not easy, is it?" Mr. Forkle asked, "deciding how to protect someone you care about. I'm sorry to add this burden to you, especially after the day you've had, but I know you're the one who will choose what's best for him." Sophie sighed. "Can I think about it?" "Take all the time you need. All I ask is that you warn me before sharing with him, if you decide to share it with him. Otherwise, I'll assume you've kept this to yourself." Sophie nodded and stumbled back to her room. She was up most of the night going back and forth, making her mind up and changing the next instant. Eventually, she tucked the note into her purple backpack in the cache's old hiding place.